And thank you, Christina. In other news, domestic violence has been a major issue in our borough for quite some time. And our first guests are joining forces with local leaders to bring awareness to talk about it. Here now to talk about the Bronx Domestic Violence Roundtable Symposium, we welcome Rocio Garcia from the Violence Intervention Program Incorporated and Kim Cavern from Safe Horizons. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So this is the first symposium that you guys are actually having, and I'll start off with you, Kim, first talking about this. Talk a little bit about the background, about what actually got this lifted up to go.
Sure. So in late 2014, council members Torres and Gibson came together and really wanted to look at the services and the service needs for survivors in the Bronx. And so they brought together a variety of service providers. We've been meeting on a regular basis since the end of 2014. We did a needs survey that surveyed about 140 people who are impacted by domestic violence in the Bronx and really looked at what the needs are. So things like housing, things like resources for underserved populations like the LGBTQ population, folks with limited English proficiency, and we're going to present the results of that study at the symposium on the 30th.
All right, and Rocio, you talk about the Violence Intervention Program.
So the Violence Intervention Program has been around since 1984. Our mission is to lead Latina survivors of domestic violence to a violence-free life. We do so with community organizing, which is the program that I oversee, and this is why we join forces with Safe Horizons and other community organizations. We also have shelters, a hotline that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in English and in Spanish. Our services are all free and confidential. We have shelters and emergency non-residential programs as well.
So when we talk about domestic violence here in the borough, how big is it? We talked about the numbers and stuff like that. Give us a little bit of a background of how big is domestic violence happening here?
It's big. So statistics say that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 7 men will be impacted by domestic violence in their life. And we know that it's also a very underreported crime. So those numbers probably don't touch the tip of the iceberg for survivors. Here in the Bronx, our Bronx Family Court program here for Safe Horizons sees between 500 and 700 people a month. So it's
500 to 700
a month.
And these are just the people that are reporting the domestic violence, because we also want to bring awareness that domestic violence doesn't discriminate. So whether you're a man, you're a woman, undocumented, LGBTQ, the youth as well as the elder are affected by domestic violence.
And when we talk about domestic violence, obviously the first thing people think about is someone hitting someone else, but there are different forms of domestic violence. Can you give somebody a little bit more information as to what are some of the other different forms of domestic violence?
I think it's easy to think about, as you said, domestic violence as being physical violence against another person. We know that intimate partner violence is really about an element of power and control, so one person's life getting bigger while they're making another person's life smaller, and that takes many forms. That can be emotional abuse, that can be financial, sexual abuse, and we know that often those are the wounds that are harder to heal.
And when we talk about this, obviously getting help and getting support out there, what kind of support? There's a lot of support out there in terms of here in the borough, because some people say, the Bronx is an underserved community. Are we finding that there are enough resources to meet those who are victims of domestic violence?
I mean, there are resources out there, and we do believe that there are enough resources. It's just that, again, with the symposium, we're aiming to educate the community so they are aware of the resources that are out there. Our programs have location in the borough as well.
So when we talk about the symposium, actually, who's expected to be in attendance?
So we're expecting Councilmember Richie Torres, Vanessa Gibson, the Bronx Borough President, Councilmember Salamanca, and the Speaker of the Council, which is Melissa Marviverito.
And so it should be a pretty power-packed conference. What are you hoping that people take away?
We want people to understand that there are resources. We want people to know how to connect with those resources. We also really want to present the results of our needs assessment and show that there are still needs. We identified that 55% of the people who took the needs assessment identified safe, affordable housing as something that they didn't feel they had access to. 26% of the people that took the needs assessment said they were living in a shelter. So we also really want to identify the gaps in services and areas where more attention can be paid.
And about how many people did you talk to in getting this needs assessment out there?
We interviewed 140 people actually took the survey, and it was a collaboration between 9 different programs of services. So we had nonprofits, government agencies, and other legal services that helped us contribute to the survey.
And so if you want to take part in this symposium, we'll let you know you saw the information, and we'll give the information again, and hopefully that you can be out there, because domestic violence is something that's prevalent as you said, in the community, you said 500 to 700 people a month that we actually are seeing. As far as the persons that are out there that are watching, our viewers right now, if somebody's out there watching and saying, listen, you know, I think I might be dealing with this situation of domestic violence, might have a relative that's dealing with domestic violence, what are the options that are available to them currently right now?
Well, I think I can speak for all of our programs when I say that we'll work with survivors directly and also family members of survivors. We at Safe Horizon, we work with clients in what we call a client-centered way, meaning we're not here to tell anyone what to do, we're not here to give advice, but we're here to educate folks on their risk, try to help them put together a safety plan that's going to be right for them, and try to connect them with resources that are available to them.
Similar thing at the Violence Intervention Program, and again, going back to the fact that we have a hotline that's open 24/7. So if the victim isn't ready to leave the abuser, or the victim isn't ready to take that step, they can always call that hotline and be counseled as many times as they want to. We also have the non-residential programs, and everything that we do are free and confidential. So anyone that is being impacted by domestic violence can access our services free of charge.
So once again, let's give them the information about the symposium, where and what time.
So it will be taking place on September 30th at Ostos Community College between 9 and 1 p.m.
And so you're invited to come on out and be a part of that, as we say, a lineup of heavy hitters as well as the local community with information that's aimed at helping people in the area of domestic violence. And as we talk about helping people with domestic violence, obviously a lot of resources are out there. You guys are a very, very valuable resource. What are people taking away when they come through your doors in terms of the resources and the things that are available? What do you think that they're able to walk away with and say, I got this?
Information, which is empowering and is key. So if they didn't know that we were out there, now they know. So just a matter of getting that information, those resources, and empowering the victim and or survivor of intimate partner violence as well as domestic violence.
Kim, is it a heavy lift to really get people to come in and talk about domestic violence?
I think that we're here when people are ready. So I wouldn't say it's a heavy lift. I would say that we want to encourage everyone to seek help and know that help is here, and the help is here to meet their needs.
All righty. Well, Kim Rocio, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us
Thank you
about
for
the
having us.
Domestic Violence Roundtable Symposium. And as you've got the information, of course, we hope that you can share it with somebody with regards to domestic violence. Got to take a quick break, but when we come back, going to sit down with representatives from RAIN Total Care to discuss what health literacy is. We encourage you to stay with us. We'll be right back in a few.